welcome to the Pope Paul VI Learning Resource Center at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa here in Nairobi. My name is Eric Latif of Spice FM and KTN News.
And I'm Yvonne Okwara of Citizen Television. Welcome to the second of two presidential debates between the four presidential candidates cleared to run for president in the forthcoming election. This is the last of 6 national televised debates organized through a joint media presidential debates initiative, bringing together literally the entire Kenyan media fraternity.
To conduct themselves with utmost decorum, address each other with respect, and extend honor to viewers watching this debate live across all of Kenya's broadcast media platforms.
The candidates in the debate have also agreed to observe the highest standards of ethics in their conduct on the debate platform. The candidates are not permitted to carry or refer to their mobile phones or to wear any listening devices, including earphones. Medically recommended hearing aids are exempt from this rule. But luckily, we have confirmed that none of the candidates is on a hearing aid.
Ethics and guidelines also remind the candidates that they shall not carry to the debate platform any written material, whether books or journals, manifestos, or any articles, including even handwritten notes.
Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, 2 minutes to answer a question, and 60 seconds for a rebuttal. The topics have been carefully selected after a thorough assessment of the state of our nation and the sentiments of the Kenyan voters in various parts of the country.
In line with the debate rules and best practice, the questions we shall be asking tonight have not been shared with any of the campaign teams, neither were they discussed or formulated in conjunction with anyone. The questions we shall be asking tonight are entirely our own.
An invited audience seated here in the auditorium has also agreed to the debate rules. They have been fully briefed that cheers, jeers, or any other form of noise is not permitted during the debate. The audience has also agreed to the request and requirement to maintain order and civility right through this debate.
This debate was to feature 2 leading presidential candidates, Raila Odinga of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Party and William Ruto of the United Democratic Alliance, UDA. We have, however, received written notification from the Raila Odinga campaign that he shall not be taking part in this debate.
Indeed, but in keeping with the traditions of the Joint Media Presidential Debates Initiative since 2013, the debate is on. And we now make one exception to permit the audience here in the auditorium to help us welcome Dr. William Ruto, the UDA presidential candidate, to the stage.
Your Excellency, Deputy President, Honorable Ruto, thank you very much for honoring Kenyans with this appearance. We shall conduct a series of question and answer, and whose topics have already been shared with you. We'll give you 2 minutes to begin with your opening statement before we go to the main thrust of the questions tonight.
Thank you very much. William Ruto, a husband, to my dear wife Rachel, who is in this audience, a father, to my children who are also joining me this evening in this debate, the sitting Deputy President of Kenya, a presidential candidate in this election, and I have come here to participate in this debate because I have presented myself as a presidential candidate, knowing very well where our country is. We are a country that is faced with mounting challenges, We have a huge track record of what we have achieved, but there is tremendous opportunity out there for more to be achieved. I believe that this is a Mama Mboga moment. We have 5 million young people who are not working. We have 15 million Kenyans who today are blacklisted in CRB. We have 10 million citizens who have no access to credit in the micro and small enterprise sector. And I believe I am the candidate with a plan to be able to get Kenya to the next level.
Thank you, Honorable Ruto, for your opening statement. Let's get right into the first topic of discussion here tonight, and that is the cost of living, something that many Kenyans are concerned about tonight. At the moment, Honorable Ruto, we currently have 3 subsidies in place on fuel, on unga, on fertilizer, all aimed at dealing with the cost of living. Do you believe that subsidies are the way to go and are the right approach at this moment to deal with this issue?
I believe that subsidies can alleviate the problem to an extent, especially when we find ourselves in the situation where we are. My position is that we find ourselves at this port because there are certain things we didn't do right. We had a Big Four plan because we foresaw this situation. We were here in 2017. We decided then that it is proper to formulate a plan that included matters food security. If you look at the 4 pillars of the Big Four plan, one of them was agriculture and food security and nutrition. Unfortunately, that plan fell apart. It was actually sabotaged. So we find ourselves in this space because, one, we didn't capitalize our agricultural sector. We actually removed the fertilizer subsidy program that existed, which we just reinstated, I think, 3 months ago. Why did we withdraw it in the first place? Because to deal with the cost of living, you just have to increase agricultural productivity. And to increase agricultural productivity, you need to do 3 things. Number 1, make sure farmers have access to inputs, fertilizer, seeds, pesticides. Make sure the farmers have the necessary capital to be able to do the farming. And 3, make sure they have access to markets that are not rigged. Unfortunately, we didn't do that, and that's why we find ourselves in the situation we're in. So that's why in our plan, as Kenya Kwanza, we have set out with clarity what we need to do. We have put in place a 30 billion revolving fund to make sure that farmers have access to inputs. We have added a 12 billion shilling expenditure on agricultural extension, because it's not just enough to have inputs. It's also important for farmers to use the latest information on how to get our farming right and increase the productivity of every farmer. And the statistics show, with access to fertilizer, with access to certified seed, with access to capital, a farmer who produces 5 bags can produce 15. So we can actually double, if not triple, our agricultural output. What that means is that the 2 million farmers who today are net importers of food themselves can actually produce surplus. And we can make sure that we have sufficient supply that ensures that the prices are reasonable for everybody. So the real solution to the cost of living, especially on matters food, because we all understand the biggest contributor to the high cost of living is the cost of food. The average expenditure of families is 52% of their income. In fact, poorer families spend between 60 and 65% of their income on food. So dealing with the cost of food significantly deals with the challenge of high cost of living.
Honorable Deputy President, if I may just interject, what you say today has also been said by you before. In the first term of your administration, you pledged the same, that you are going to deal with agriculture, you're going to support farmers, and that's when the first fertilizer subsidy was rolled in before it was embroiled in scandal. And you'd also promised the Galana Kulalu project. When you say today that the food security aspect of the Big Four agenda was sabotaged, what exactly do you mean? What failed in the Big Four agenda with regards to food security?
Precisely that. It was sabotaged.
By who and how?
Because you know as well as I do that we never got to implement that plan. Immediately, we changed course, and the whole Big Four plan was shelved. And we went on a tangent because of the handshake equation. We went to handshake, to BBI, and the rest is history. We didn't get the time to do what we had promised the people of Kenya to do. In fact, immediately thereafter, I tried, like has been tradition for me, to support my boss. And many times, I tried to push the Big Four plan to the extent that my boss, the president, asked me that he wanted to do things differently. And he requested that he wanted to assemble a different group of people to help him deliver on what he wanted to be the legacy of the fourth president. And unfortunately, the Big Four suffered a big blow because the whole of that program did not take place.
Galana Kulalu project, Honorable Deputy President, was launched during the first term. What happened? What went wrong? Why did it fail?
The Galana Kulalu project was conceived. In fact, what happened is the first 10,000, the pilot on the first 10,000 program took place. In fact, the first harvest of maize in that program came into being. And the recommendations from the trial on that project was we needed to build a dam because the water from the river was not sufficient to do the Galana Kulalu project. We needed to scale up now and do the dam so that the water that was available, because the soils research and the trials showed that the soils could actually support the production of maize and other cereals. Unfortunately, it didn't move from there because we didn't get the dam sorted. And you know that we had actually 57 dams that we would have wanted to do. Unfortunately, they didn't happen. They suffered.
So why didn't you do the dams, Honorable Deputy President? And the former ambassador of Israel to Kenya also said that they were facing frustration in supporting the Kenyan government on this. Why did you not do the dams? Why did you not go ahead with the implementation of the Galana Kulalu project?
The Galana Kulalu project, as I have told you, was part of a wider plan to make sure that we move our agricultural productivity from rain-fed to irrigation. And it was not just about Galana Gulalu, it was a series of other dams, including what we call the High Grand Fall dams that was supposed to feed into the lower part of the Tana. It was Lowat Dam in Turkana. It was Radat Dam in Baringo. There was a big plan around that was now supposed to roll into place with now our targeted, because our second term was targeted at agricultural productivity and food security. And we had now made it the deliverable for our second term. And as I have told you, our second term program ran into headwinds.
Honorable Ruto, just to continue to understand Galana Kulalu, because that was a big project that, had it have succeeded, might have solved quite a few of the issues we have with respect to food security. The Auditor General conducted a report and cited weaknesses in the contracting of it. First, that there was single sourcing, and that even the manner in which the contract itself was done, in terms of payments that were tied to the contractor. And so raising a number of issues around the manner in which the contract itself was put together, that then states that this was something that was going to fail anyway. And so what's your response to that with respect to the manner in which contracting is done in this country, particularly with Galana Kulalu, which is a big project under the first term of the Jubilee administration, of which you are a part?
I quite agree that issues were raised around the contract, and that is why the contract actually was shelved with a balance. It didn't go the full hog, because when those issues were identified, it led to the contract being stopped so that those issues could be addressed. But by the time it was getting there, already the trials had been done, the pivots had been set up, the first crop had been harvested, and we already had the template on what actually needed to be done, because the contract, the initial contract, was for the first 10,000 acres. The real contract was for the 1 million acres, which was really the target for food production. But as I have told you, that is not the only project we were looking at for food production. And let me also say that even without the implementation of the Galana Gulalu, supporting the farmers as they are today would still guarantee us a situation where we would not be in the situation we are in. Today, for the first time in Kenya, the price of unga has gone to 230 in some cases. It's never been that bad. I must say, as a former Minister for Agriculture, serving under President Kibaki, I am the minister who assembled the infrastructure that provide subsidy on fertilizer. And we saw an increase of 5 million bags of maize when we rolled that plan. When that plan was, when the subsidy, fertilizer subsidy was cancelled 2 years ago, that is why we are where we are. We are not here because Galana failed. We are here because we didn't do what we needed to do with our farmers the way they are today. What Galana Kulalu was supposed to give us is actually that extra production that would even make it possible for Kenya to export. There is absolutely no reason why Kenya today is spending 12 billion shillings to import maize from Uganda or from Tanzania. We should be net exporters of maize, for example, but we are not. And the reason why we are not is because our agricultural sector is undercapitalized. We have removed the support that farmers always had. And that is why, for the first time, because of the things we didn't do, because of the removal of the fertilizer subsidy, for the first time, the price of unga has gone to 230.
Honorable Deputy President, you say that a lot was done in the first term, and that is why we got to a point where in 2017, we still had rise in food prices?
In 2017, it was specifically because of drought. And for your information, the prices of flour, maize flour, went to 140. It didn't go to 230. That's the whole difference.
However, then,
even in the situation of drought in 2017, what the debate then was 2 kilogram packet of maize was retailing at 140. Today, it is retailing at 230 because compounded with the drought, we just did not produce as we should have produced because we didn't support the farmers the way we have always supported the farmers.
Honorable Ruto, I'd like to speak about another issue that is a contributing factor to the cost of living, and that is the high cost of fuel in the country. What do you propose to do with that? Because there's also a current subsidy in place for that. What do you think is the solution to the rising cost of fuel, which, as you know, drives the cost of a number of other products?
I think the first thing that we need to do is to look at the taxes, because 50% almost of the cost of fuel in Kenya is taxes. I think it's time, as a country, we looked at, I think there are 15 different taxes on fuel. And I think it's time we relooked at how else do we raise revenue.
Which taxes would you be proposing to remove from fuel, the cost of fuel?
I think majority of the taxes that are in that bracket, I think there are almost 15 different taxes that are there. I do not have the specifics, but those 15, I think we need to interrogate these 15 different taxes. Which ones can we put aside so that, like other countries, we can limit the taxation on fuel? Take, for example,
let me
VAT.
ask, yeah, yes, okay,
take, for example, VAT.
Correct.
I think we need to rethink taxation, VAT taxation on fuel. That was the latest inclusion of taxes on fuel. And I think it was very controversial.
Yeah, Honorable Ruto, VAT on petroleum products was indeed controversial. Let me take you back to so you in this
The price of fuel has, this VAT was imposed, then the price of fuel was under 100.
Honorable Ruto, when the VAT was imposed, it was at the time a condition by IMF when we were seeking a precautionary facility. Today we find ourselves in the exact same position with third tranche of an IMF facility, and once again, they are calling for, the same issue that we are facing with VAT then is the same one we are facing now. And at the point, IMF has in fact said that we do not need to be removing taxes on petroleum products. So with an IMF facility already in place, are you then saying you are going to go back to the IMF and renegotiate the terms of that loan that is already in place regarding IMF VAT on fuel products?
What's wrong with negotiating with IMF? I think any reasonable government looking at the situation where we are, living, and how many Kenyans are every day sinking below the poverty line. I think it takes a courageous government looking at that. There are other instruments that we can deploy. For example, we have the fuel subsidy fund. We need to think about how that fund is being used, how we are deploying it. Are we deploying it correctly? Is it giving us value? And what changes can be made? We need an open and frank conversation with our development partners who support us. And to the best of my knowledge,
a conversation tonight, and that is on the issue of national debt. And I'd like to pick up just where you left off. You say our partners, are open to renegotiation. However, on the matter of with respect us today, when he brought up the issue, which is a loan.
It's completely different.
How so?
What we cannot entertain as a country is a position that we cannot pay. We are in a position that we can't service our debt. We cannot, we need to go out there and renegotiate our debt. I think that would send the wrong signal. What unbudgeted projects, in fact, that is the biggest source of our problem. Projects that are not within the budget, so that we cannot keep our fiscal deficit at what we have committed. 5% or 5.9%. Number three, we need to raise our revenues. And I have said openly that we have areas that we believe that we can raise our revenue. We collect 52% of all collectible VAT. Just by automation,
National debt as it stands today is manageable.
our debt today an incentive. And then go back to the Uhuru Gardens Museum are in the region of 100 billion unbudgeted projects. And that is what is spiraling our borrowing. And I'm saying that our first and that's why if you go today without a budget line, it goes to 50% of the budget. That is where we need to apply the brakes. And we are saying clearly, we not only, which means we are also hurting our own enterprises locally, access to credit. It becomes a big challenge. We must when we were selling the shares of Safaricom. Safaricom was looking for 50 billion. They got 250 billion. It tells you there is a lot of money out there. If we used different instruments, how do we use and to have access to that information? The fact that that information is not being made public is against
time. You are the sitting deputy president of this. You say this should have happened. Constitutionally, but it did not.
The Constitution, whenever required, the people equally and fairly. So I have discharged that responsibility to the best of my ability. And I have made my position in regard to the contracts very well known to the right officers. It is not a matter I would have wanted to take it in public for purposes of making sure that government is functioning.